today is 4 years since I was admitted into hospital, and I thought what better way to sort of talk about it and reflect on what we've been through is to talk with the woman of the whole journey, the one that's been there with me through thick and thin, and that really supported me through it. So I'm going to start with asking you a few questions, if you don't mind.
That's fine, Ash.
So I want to start off by asking, going back to when I was first diagnosed, what was your initial thought when our psychologist at Tweed Mental Health said your daughter has anorexia?
I was a bit shocked to find that I suppose it was anorexia, because I thought it was just going to be something like severe anxiety or, probably not that diagnosis, because to be honest, I knew nothing about it. I didn't know what it was. All I knew growing up was that there was another girl that had it when I was growing up, and that's really all I knew about it. I wasn't kind of given any a book or resources to say, what it actually was. I had to do a bit of research to find out kind of. It's hard because it's not a blanket fit, if that there's not a set of symptoms and you ticked all of them. You had some of them and you had some of, anxiety as well. You had some of the depression signs. So it was a combination of both. The anorexia really at the end of the day is you restricting your food and us having to get that food back into you so you can have a healthy body and a healthy mind to be able to process moving forward, so you can kind of manage that on your own. That's kind of,
At any stage during my diagnosis, was there a certain point where you went, oh my God, this is not what I expected?
Yeah, all of it, because I didn't know what to expect, because no one in this area that I knew of had suffered it. People that I'd reached out to through friends of friends that their kids had it didn't really want to talk about it.
At the initial stage, did you realise it was a mental illness?
Not really. I knew there was issues going on. It's hard to say it's anything when you don't know anything about it. Yeah. And I'm, as you know, I don't really like labels that much. And yes, we were told it was a mental illness, and we had to cope with that. We also had to cope with you not eating. So we had to, try and get the food into you. There was really no manual or guidance to do that. It was just, we were told just to get the food into you. We knew what we were dealing with wasn't normal, and we knew that it was getting worse. So we had to do something. I think the only thing I can describe is you just do it because you have to, but you're both very numb, and we talked a lot about it. And as you know, there was a lot of fighting. There was a lot of, are we doing the right thing for you?
Was there any hesitation in, I'm just going to throw my hands in the air, this is too hard?
No, never.
Why?
Because we gave you life. We weren't about to sit here and just let you give up on that life. I mean, as a parent, that's your job, is to make sure that your child has the best ability to be able to live a fulfilling life. And I wasn't about to just go, oh, this is too hard, let you die. What's the point of being a parent? You got to fight for your kids, whether it's right or wrong. But in your heart, love's love, and you do it because we love you and we wanted you to get through this. And even though it was the hardest thing ever, as you know, we did things to you that I wouldn't wish upon anyone to do to a child. But I knew someday, because you're part of me and you're part of Dad, and we knew that there was willpower in there, and we knew one day you would find that. we just had to get you to that stage to see that life was worth fighting for.
Before I was diagnosed, did you see any signs of, obviously you said you didn't have any prior knowledge of eating disorders to the extent that you do now, but did you have any inklings or sort of sense that something was wrong?
Yeah, I think, as I've said before, the first signs that I knew something was wrong was your behaviour, because you were just a fun-loving, used to eat anything type of person. You didn't really look at labels. You didn't care what calories were in things. You liked to exercise and be active, but you weren't obsessed with it. So those behaviours changed. So, the favourite meal that I used to cook, you just suddenly wouldn't eat it. You'd be watching what I was putting in the food. You wanted to suddenly be healthy. You wanted to cut out white bread, white rice, full cream milk. All of these things that, to me, growing up as a teenager, you don't really worry about, because you just eat it and you go and have fun and you'll be active and
Do you think there was any contributing factors from your side of view of what influenced my extreme behaviour?
Look, looking back on it, I see it now and I probably go, yeah, like there was relationships that you were having with people that weren't healthy. The relationships within our own household between brothers and stuff, was strained. Outside influences. But it's easy to say that now because we can look back and we can see it. But at the time, it's hard to pick up because it is labelled as normal teenage behaviour. But I strongly believe that the messaging out there for young people is a lot more 24/7 in your face, and it's hard to get away from it when that's what you're fixating on. And it's hard to find positive role models that are about strength and wellness and not about having the perfect body. There's a difference.
Yeah. Now, as we said, it's a 4-year anniversary. So going back to that decision to take me to hospital, what influenced that decision?
Well, you weren't eating. You weren't eating, you weren't drinking, you were drugged up, you were sleeping all day. There was no quality of life there. You weren't even existing. You were just this body that was in our house, and we couldn't help you anymore. So we had to get external help. We had to take you somewhere that I knew you could get the help to get you better.
Was it at the stage where it became too much on the family?
Look, I think, I don't know what too much is, because not every family is strong enough to go through this. We're lucky, I suppose, where, I communicated the whole way through, and I was upfront, as you know, the whole way through. I never hid it. I never hid the family from the truth. We were told that you could possibly die, and I had to prepare them for that.
Do you think the hospital was an easy day for you to sign me away over to a ward?
No, it was
Why
probably.
Was it hard?
It's probably one of the hardest things I ever have had to do. It's just different emotions to sit there and you were just like, you knew, as you know, I had to trick you to get there, and then sitting there and listening to the process of what was going to happen, and you weren't really taking that in, and then you're looking at me going, we're not staying here, are we? And to lie to you was really hard, but I knew I had to do that to get you better. And and once I saw the place and what it was like, my heart broke. It was like, what have I done? But I just had to trust that this was the right thing to do for you, because it was either you went there or you went in a box.
Do you think after going through the hospital experience, it was the necessary decision?
Yeah, definitely. That, as hard as it was and torturous it was for all of us to watch you in there, and the nurses and the whole process. But it saved your life, and it taught us a lot, and it taught us a lot about you. Just like I'm sure you learned a lot about yourself in there.
Now, a lot of being in the children's ward, there was a lot of parents that, dropped their kids off, never came back, or didn't turn up every day. Why did you decide to come every single day, and even if it was just sitting with me for an hour every single day you were there? Why did you decide to do that?
Why wouldn't I? You're my daughter, and I love you, and I wasn't going to leave you alone. I'd already felt like I'd left you there to fight this, and the power had been taken off me to for them to get you better. And I thought, well, I'm not going to sit by and just have a holiday. I wanted to learn as much as I could about what I was dealing with. I wanted to see what they were seeing so I could help you when you got home. This was, as much as they said to me, oh, don't come in till lunchtime, or, relax, take care of yourself. Well, that's not why I put you in hospital. I didn't put you in hospital to have a holiday. I put you in hospital to get you better, and so I could learn to get you better. I think the hardest thing for a parent that's going through an eating disorder is, why are you doing this to me? And that seems a really selfish thing to say, but you kind of think, I love you. I've given you everything that you want. You've got this, you've got that. Everyone's different, but I felt like, why are you doing this to yourself, and why are you doing this to us? We love you. Why can't you see we love you? Why aren't you fighting to be part of this? Until I realised it wasn't about our circumstance, that this mental illness was about, and even more than you, it was about coping, it was about control, it was about a situation that you were going through that we had no idea that you were doing, and I suddenly realised it's it wasn't a thing that I should hate, that this disease wasn't a thing that I should be angry at. It was something I should embrace and try and cope you through it the best way I can. And I knew that the love was there, and I knew the faith that you would someday realise the love was there, and that would get you through it.
In the middle of the eating disorder, did you ever see an end?
No, not at the beginning. I mean, and you're told that, you're told this is a 7 to 10 year process. So I never focused on the end. I just focused on one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, one meal at a time.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you just lose hope, and you can't afford to lose hope.
Coming out of hospital, did you see that was it, that I was finally restored my weight, and that the process was coming to a gradual end?
Out of hospital?
Yeah.
No, not at all. Because, and that's been really naive if I thought that, because, you got discharged well under the weight you should have been. And that's not because of the hospital saying, that's because they realised that you weren't really going to get much better there. You needed to come home and be in your home environment, and you didn't want to come home in the end. So that was a battle to get you home. And then it was the battle of keeping up those standards in hospital here, and then adding in the dynamics of all the family. And so that coming home was hard.
Yeah.
But as I said, I just focused on one meal at a time. For them to teach me not to be emotional around you when it came to food.
Was that hard?
Yeah, it was. But once I'd mastered it, it was easy. Because then I just switched off and went, well, this is the process. I've got to trust the process, and this is what you have to do, and this is what we're going to do, Ash. And then I was, I was like the nurse at mealtime, and after mealtime I became the mum and can give you the nurturing care you need to get over that meal. But I just you have to be strong to get the food in. The food's the medicine. Not focusing on the weight so much was a thing. Like, the weighing was an issue for you, and that was an indication to tell us if you were good or bad.
Yeah.
And I don't think the weight's important, but I don't think you and I should have been focusing on the number as much. And probably researching more and putting you more in front of better influence people, if that makes sense. Would have been good, because you're very vulnerable, and you're like a sponge, and you take everything literally. So I had to be very careful the information that I gave you, and I probably should have researched that a little bit more before I put you in front of those people.
And coming out now, seeing that we obviously went through such a troubling time, that we came across a lot of roadblocks, do you have any missions or goals that you want to implement in order to prevent our journey being someone else's as well?
Oh God, if I had a bottomless pit of money, I would. But unfortunately, mental health issues and eating disorder issues are very complex. There's not a blanket answer for all of them. Everyone's case is different. Everyone's treatment is different. But I would love to have more resources in our area to help families with that support. You can't always rely on your grandparents and your family to understand and be able to get you through it. Sometimes you just need the external professional help to come in, even to come into your home and assess it and go, you need to change this and this, or, to have support for your other family members, because they get left behind. Having to force feed you is something that probably will stick with me forever, because that was just horrible, really, really horrible. And, I just, that image is hard to let go of.
Now, before we wrap this up, is there any message that you want to send to people that maybe have a child that's going through an eating disorder, or they're seeing symptoms, they're not sure what to do, they don't know much about an eating disorder, people that are looking for help and have nowhere to look? What is your message that you want to send people?
I think if you think your child is having significant changes, and what I mean by that, like you're going to have puberty changes, you're going to have hormonal changes when your body goes from being a child into a teenager. Your body shape changes, your hips get bigger, your boobs get bigger. Those changes are sometimes hard to handle for some kids, and some they're not. But significant changes like behavioural changes, your food's changing, you're noticing your dresses change, like you used to wear jumpers in summer, and your exercise routine suddenly got really obsessive. So really obsessive changes and behavioural obsessive changes, if they're happening, don't hesitate. Just go to a GP, and if you don't get the answer you're looking for, go to another GP. Don't just take one answer as like one no as a no. Keep going and getting help. And there's no harm in getting counselling from a counsellor, or a psychologist or psychiatrist, or there's no harm in asking questions and getting your questions answered correctly, because if you leave it escalates really quickly, and then you're beyond help. And I just don't want anyone to have to go through what we went through.
I have one more question. Going through my recovery, you were never once ashamed to say that I had anorexia, where myself, on the other hand, I was very ashamed of being known as someone with an eating disorder or a mental illness. Why were you never afraid of the illness or afraid to tell people what I had and what our family was going through?
I'm not ashamed of it because you didn't bring this on. It wasn't something that you invited. This happened to you because of some circumstances, and that was your coping mechanism at the time. There's nothing to be ashamed of. You had an illness. It's like someone that's got, had their leg cut off, or cancer, or there's nothing to be ashamed of. It happens to you. It's a story. It's a part of your life that's going to make you grow. And I want to educate people. You shouldn't be ashamed of mental illnesses or any disability. It's who you are. It shapes you, and it has shaped you into the most amazing, strong person. And it was, a horrific journey to get to that. But I just had the utmost faith and love that you were going to get through it, and you would be amazing at the other end. And so there's nothing to be ashamed of for that.